Before air conditioners and electric fans, people endured extreme heat with nothing but nature, architecture, and ingenuity. In medieval Europe, the Middle East, and beyond, communities developed cooling systems that worked without electricity, techniques so effective they could inspire modern solutions to today's record-breaking heat waves. From stone walls that blocked sunlight to wind towers that funneled breezes, medieval cooling wasn't just survival, it was a science. As climate change pushes temperatures higher, these ancient methods could be the key to building cooler, more sustainable cities. For medieval societies, heat was more than discomfort, it was a challenge that shaped architecture, urban planning, clothing, and daily life. Without the mechanical refrigeration and air conditioning we take for granted today, survival in hot climates depended entirely on understanding the environment and adapting to it. While each culture's solutions were unique, they all shared one trait. They harnessed natural forces, shade, wind, water, and thermal mass to create comfort. 1. Architecture designed for shade and airflow. Medieval towns were rarely laid out in wide, straight boulevards. Instead, streets were narrow, twisting, and often covered with overhangs or archways. These designs weren't accidents, they were deliberate temperature control strategies. Narrow streets limited direct sun exposure, while tall buildings provided long shadows throughout the day. Stone, the primary building material, had high thermal mass, meaning it absorbed heat slowly and released it just as slowly, keeping interiors cooler even in the peak of summer. Windows were small to minimize heat entry, and shutters allowed precise control over airflow. In some southern European towns, wooden lattice screens, precursors to today's shading devices, filtered light while letting in a cooling breeze. These passive cooling techniques could lower indoor temperatures by several degrees compared to the outside air. 2. The power of water. Water played a central role in medieval cooling. Public fountains, aqueduct-fed basins, and even decorative pools weren't only for aesthetics, they were early evaporative cooling systems. The evaporation of water absorbs heat from the air, reducing the surrounding temperature. In Islamic Spain, courtyards often featured central fountains that doubled as social spaces and temperature regulators. The combination of shade, water, and airflow created microclimates where people could gather comfortably even in the hottest months. Some castles and monasteries went further, incorporating water channels into their architecture. In certain regions, water was directed through clay pipes or stone troughs running along shaded walls, cooling the air that passed over it. This same principle underlies modern evaporative coolers used in arid climates today. 3. Harnessing the wind. In the Middle East and parts of North Africa, wind towers, tall, hollow structures with open sides, captured breezes and funneled them downward into buildings. While Europe didn't use wind towers extensively, the concept of catching wind was present in features like high clerestory windows in cathedrals or strategically placed vents in city walls. These openings promoted cross-ventilation, replacing hot indoor air with cooler outdoor air. In coastal areas, medieval builders understood the value of orienting streets and homes to face prevailing winds. This knowledge came from centuries of observation, and it ensured that towns were naturally ventilated without mechanical assistance. 4. Cooling through materials. Material choice was crucial. Thick limestone walls, clay tiles, and thatched roofs all contributed to temperature regulation. Stone provided insulation and thermal stability. Clay tile roofs reflected some sunlight while allowing trapped heat to escape through gaps. Thatched roofs offered exceptional insulation, keeping interiors cool in summer and warm in winter. Flooring materials were also selected with cooling in mind. In hotter climates, tile or stone floors were preferred because they felt cool to the touch and didn't retain heat as wood did. 5. Lifestyle as climate control. Cooling wasn't limited to architecture, daily routines were adapted to the heat. Work began early in the morning, paused during the hottest hours, and resumed in the late afternoon. Meals were lighter and often included fresh fruits and vegetables with high water content. Clothing was loose and made from breathable fabrics like linen, which allowed sweat to evaporate quickly. Markets, public gatherings, and even religious events were often scheduled for cooler parts of the day. This synchronization with the environment reduced the need for constant cooling and ensured that people conserved energy during heat waves. 6. The science behind the success. While medieval builders didn't understand modern thermodynamics, they intuitively applied its principles. Shade reduces radiant heat gain. Evaporation absorbs latent heat from the air. Airflow promotes convective cooling. Thermal mass stabilizes temperature fluctuations. By combining these effects, medieval towns could maintain comfort without consuming energy. 7. Lessons for the modern world. Today, as climate change intensifies and heat waves become more frequent, these principles are gaining attention from architects and urban planners. Passive cooling strategies reduce energy demand, lower greenhouse gas emissions, and provide resilience during power outages. By studying medieval examples, we can design modern cities that remain comfortable without relying solely on mechanical cooling. Incorporating these ideas could mean rethinking street layouts to increase shading, integrating water features into public spaces, and using building materials with high thermal mass. Modern technology can enhance these effects. Solar-powered pumps could circulate water through cooling channels, and advanced materials could replicate the insulating properties of medieval walls without the same weight. 8. Cultural and historical value. Beyond practicality, reviving medieval cooling techniques connects us to our heritage. These methods are part of a long tradition of human adaptation and resilience. They remind us that innovation doesn't always mean starting from scratch. Sometimes it means rediscovering what worked for centuries and refining it for today's challenges. In the 21st century, the world's cities are under siege from an invisible but relentless enemy: heat. Asphalt streets, glass towers, and steel structures absorb and radiate warmth like giant furnaces, creating the infamous urban heat island effect. While air conditioning has become the default defense, it consumes enormous amounts of energy, strains power grids, and emits greenhouse gases that worsen the very problem it's trying to solve. 8 centuries ago, long before carbon emissions and climate change entered our vocabulary, medieval builders were already mastering ways to keep people cool without burning a single lump of coal or consuming a single watt of electricity. The opportunity now is not to nostalgically copy the past, but to merge its wisdom with the precision and capabilities of modern engineering, producing solutions that are both sustainable and scalable for megacities facing unprecedented temperature extremes. One of the most promising ways to adapt medieval cooling for the modern age is through architectural design that borrows both form and function from history. Medieval towns were shaped by necessity. Narrow streets, shaded courtyards, and thick stone walls were not aesthetic accidents but deliberate climate responses. Translating these into contemporary urban landscapes could involve designing high-density districts with built-in shading from overlapping structures, creating networks of breezeways that channel prevailing winds, and integrating green canopies that mimic the cooling shadows of medieval timber awnings. Instead of glass skyscrapers that trap heat, buildings could be clad in materials with high thermal mass, as in medieval stonework, or advanced composites that replicate stone's slow heat absorption and release, thereby stabilizing indoor temperatures without constant heat use. Modern computational modeling can even perfect what medieval builders learned through centuries of observation. Algorithms can simulate airflow through city blocks, optimizing the placement of buildings to capture breezes just as ancient wind towers did in the Middle East. Water, too, remains a timeless ally in the battle against heat. Medieval fountains and canals didn't just supply drinking water, they created microclimates where evaporating moisture cooled the surrounding air. Today, urban planners can revive this principle with modern efficiency, using low-energy, solar-powered pumps to circulate water through shallow basins in public squares, shaded pedestrian corridors, and rooftop gardens. Such features could be engineered with permeable stone or ceramic tiles, allowing water to seep, evaporate, and cool in a controlled way. In climates where water scarcity is a concern, closed-loop systems could recycle the same water repeatedly, ensuring sustainability without sacrificing the cooling benefits. These installations could be designed as social hubs, blending functionality and beauty much like medieval plazas where life revolved around a central fountain. Ventilation remains another bridge between the past and present. The wind towers of medieval Islamic architecture, tall structures that caught high breezes and funneled them into living spaces, could be reimagined for modern skyscrapers and apartment complexes. Using lightweight materials like aluminum or reinforced composites, modern wind towers could be embedded into high-rises, capturing air from cooler elevations and directing it downward through duct systems lined with heat-absorbing ceramics or even water misting chambers. Computational fluid dynamics software could optimize these systems to ensure maximum airflow with minimal energy. The effect would be a constant, natural ventilation cycle and elegant fusion of ancient passive cooling and modern precision engineering. Lifestyle adaptations, though less tangible than bricks and mortar, are just as critical in this revival. In medieval times, the rhythm of daily life followed the sun. Markets and labor began early, paused during midday heat, and resumed in the cooler hours. While modern economies rarely allow for such dramatic scheduling shifts, there is growing recognition, especially in heat-prone cities, that flexible work hours could be a form of climate adaptation. Public spaces could be designed for nighttime use, with medieval-inspired lighting and direct illumination that minimizes heat gain, encouraging evening markets, performances, and community gatherings. Clothing, too, could draw from the breathable linens and layered garments of medieval Europe, updated with moisture-wicking fabrics and UV protection for today's conditions. Perhaps the most compelling modern adaptation of medieval cooling lies in integrating these strategies into sponge cities and biophilic design principles. By blending shaded stone pathways, water features, vegetation, and wind corridors, cities can create interconnected cooling zones, each lowering the local temperature by a few degrees. When distributed throughout an urban area, these microclimates can reduce the overall heat island effect significantly. Technology then becomes a partner rather than a crutch. Solar sensors can automate water circulation in fountains. Drones can monitor temperature distribution across neighborhoods, and AI-driven design tools can continuously refine the placement of shading elements. Cities reviving medieval cooling wisdom. Across the globe, as heatwaves stretch longer and cities swell with more concrete, glass, and steel, there is a growing recognition that some of the most advanced solutions are hidden in plain sight in the past. The medieval world, shaped by necessity rather than industrial excess, left behind a legacy of architectural and cultural strategies that modern cities are beginning to rediscover. These adaptations are not simply copied artifacts. They are re-engineered for scale, efficiency, and resilience, proving that ancient principles can thrive in the high-tech age. From Europe's historic quarters to the fast-growing metropolises of Asia and the Middle East, examples are emerging that show just how effective this fusion can be. One striking example is found in Seville, Spain, where the city's historic Alcazar Palace complex showcases an intricate network of shaded courtyards, arched walkways, and reflective water pools, a Moorish medieval design aimed at cooling the air naturally. In the last decade, Seville has expanded on these principles in its modern plazas and public spaces. The Metropole Parasol, a massive wooden canopy installed in the heart of the city, provides a shaded urban microclimate similar to the tree-lined medieval streets, reducing temperatures in the surrounding area by several degrees. Beneath its shelter, air flows more freely, while misting systems inspired by traditional Moorish fountains provide evaporative cooling without the water waste of conventional sprinklers. What unites all these examples is not a romantic longing for the past but a practical acknowledgement that medieval builders, constrained by their environment, developed climate-responsive designs that we can no longer afford to ignore. These cities are proving that when ancient principles are combined with modern materials and data-driven design, the result is not an anachronism, it is a highly efficient, sustainable, and human-centered urban landscape. Whether through shade, wind, water, or thermal mass, the wisdom of the medieval era is quietly reshaping the skylines of the 21st century, offering hope that our future cities can be both cooler and kinder to the planet. Future vision and conclusion. A medieval blueprint for tomorrow's cities. As the world faces an era of record-breaking heat, rapidly expanding cities, and dwindling natural resources, the race to adapt is no longer theoretical debate, it is a matter of survival. For centuries, we looked forward for solutions, chasing the promise of new technology to outpace the challenges of climate. Yet, paradoxically, the clearest blueprint for a sustainable future might lie not in the future at all, but in the distant echoes of the past. The medieval city, born in an age without fossil fuels or mass industry, was not an idyllic paradise. It had its flaws and limitations, but it was built in direct conversation with nature. Streets bent to the will of the wind, buildings embraced the shade, and water was both a lifeline and an environmental regulator.